The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Route 17 as the rumble of 40 Harley-Davidsons echoed through the Texas Hill Country. Marcus Hammer Davidson rode at the head of the Iron Brotherhood MC, his chapter returning from a charity run in Austin. The wind whipped past his weathered face as the convoy maintained tight formation, their chrome gleaming in the fading light. They'd been on the road for 3 hours when Hammer raised his left fist, the signal to pull off at the next exit. The Crossroads Diner sat just off the highway, a classic chrome and neon establishment that had served travelers for 40 years. The parking lot quickly filled with motorcycles as riders dismounted, their leather vests bearing the Iron Brotherhood patch with pride. Inside, the dinner crowd consisted of truckers, families, and a few locals. The waitress, a woman in her 50s named Martha, smiled as the bikers filed in. She'd served their kind before, respectful, generous tippers who just wanted good food and cold drinks. Hammer settled into a booth near the window with his road captain, Tommy Wrench Collins, and their sergeant-at-arms, Diego Martinez. The rest of the riders spread throughout the diner, their presence commanding but not threatening. Conversations hummed as menus were distributed and orders taken. That's when the door burst open. A small girl, no older than 7, stumbled inside. Her face was streaked with tears, her blonde hair tangled, one shoe missing. She wore a pink jacket over grass-stained jeans. Her eyes were wild with terror as she scanned the room. "Please," she screamed, her voice cracking. "Please don't let him take my mum." The diner fell silent. Every head turned. The girl's chest heaved as she sobbed, her small hands trembling. Martha rushed from behind the counter, but before she could reach the child, a man appeared in the doorway. He was tall, well-dressed in expensive jeans and a designer polo. His face was flushed red, eyes bloodshot. "Emily, get back here right now," he growled, his words slightly slurred. "No!" The girl backed away, pressing herself against a booth where an elderly couple sat frozen. "You hurt Mommy, you hurt her bad." Hammer was on his feet instantly, his 6'3" frame moving with surprising speed. He positioned himself between the man and the girl, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Brother, I think you need to step back and take a breath." The man's eyes narrowed. "This is none of your business, biker. That's my daughter and my wife is outside. We're leaving. Not until we understand what's happening here." Diego had moved to flank Hammer's right side, while Wrench covered the left. The other bikers had quietly shifted positions throughout the diner, creating a human barrier. Martha knelt beside Emily, gently touching her shoulder. "Sweetheart, where's your mama?" "In the car," Emily whimpered. "He was hitting her. She told me to run. She said run and find help." The man's jaw clenched. "She's lying. My wife is fine. She just... Emily has an imagination. We had an argument, that's all." "Then you won't mind if we check on your wife," Hammer said evenly. "Make sure she's okay." "I mind plenty. You have no right..." "Actually, we have every right to ensure someone's safety." This came from a woman in her 30s sitting at the counter. She stood, revealing a badge clipped to her belt. "Sarah Chen, off-duty sheriff's deputy from Travis County. Sir, I'm going to need you to stay right where you are." The man's confidence faltered. "This is ridiculous. You can't..." "I can, and I will." Deputy Chen was already on her radio, calling for local backup. "Everyone stays calm. Sir, keep your hands where I can see them." Hammer turned to Wrench. "Get our medic. Have him check the vehicle in the parking lot." Then to Emily, his voice softening. "Can you show us which car, sweetheart?" Emily nodded, her small hand reaching up to grasp Martha's. Together they moved toward the window. She pointed to a silver Lexus SUV parked near the entrance. Through the tinted windows, a figure was barely visible in the passenger seat. Wrench sprinted outside with Bobby Doc Harrison, their club member who'd served as a combat medic in Afghanistan. They approached the vehicle carefully. Through the window, they could see a woman slumped against the door, her face swollen, blood trickling from her nose. Doc tried the door, unlocked, and immediately began assessing her condition. Inside the diner, the man's facade was crumbling. "Look, we just had a fight. Couples fight. This is being blown way out of proportion." "Hitting a woman isn't a fight," Diego said quietly. "That's assault." 2 patrol cars pulled into the parking lot within minutes, lights flashing. The local sheriff, a grizzled man named Bill Tucker, entered the diner with his hand resting on his service weapon. Deputy Chen briefed him quickly, while the man from the Lexus began protesting loudly about his rights, about overreach, about how his lawyer would hear about this. Outside, Doc had gotten the woman, Jennifer, according to her whispered response, stabilized enough to speak. She confirmed what Emily had said. He'd been drinking. An argument had escalated. When she'd tried to leave, he'd grabbed her, struck her repeatedly. Emily had managed to unbuckle herself and run. The EMTs arrived as Sheriff Tucker placed the man in handcuffs. Jennifer was carefully transferred to a stretcher, her hand reaching out for her daughter. Emily broke free from Martha and ran to her mother's side, crying but relieved. Hammer watched from the diner doorway as the scene unfolded. The man shouted threats and accusations as he was loaded into the patrol car. Jennifer was being transported to Hill Country Memorial, 20 minutes away. Emily would ride with the paramedics. But as the ambulance pulled away, Hammer saw something in the rearview mirror of the patrol car. The man's face, twisted not with remorse but with rage, cold, calculating rage. Sheriff Tucker approached Hammer, extending his hand. "Appreciate your boys keeping things calm. Could have gone sideways fast. Glad we could help." Hammer's eyes remained on the departing vehicles. "Sheriff, that man in your car, he's got money, doesn't he? Good lawyer." Tucker's expression darkened. "Thomas Ashford, real estate developer. Yeah, he's got resources and connections. What's going to happen to Jennifer and Emily?" "Hospital tonight. Then Child Protective Services will get involved. Restraining order filed. Standard procedure." Tucker paused. "But between us, men like Ashford, they don't take losing well. Even with charges, he'll make bail by morning." Hammer nodded slowly, his mind already working. He turned to find his entire chapter watching him, waiting. They'd all heard the sheriff's words. They'd all seen what happened. "Wrench, get me the hospital address," Hammer said quietly, "and make some calls. I want to know who else is riding in Texas tonight." Chapter 2. The Call to Arms. The Iron Brotherhood Clubhouse sat on 15 acres outside San Antonio, a compound that had served as their headquarters for 20 years. By the time Hammer's chapter rolled in after midnight, word had already spread through the biker community like wildfire. The main hall filled quickly, not just Iron Brotherhood, but members from affiliated clubs across the state, the Righteous Riders from Dallas, Desert Wolves from El Paso, Lone Star Guardians from Houston, Chrome Saints from Corpus Christi. Even a delegation from the Gulf Coast Warriors had made the 3-hour ride. Hammer stood at the head of the room, his laptop connected to a projector displaying a map of Hill Country Memorial Hospital. Beside him stood Maria Gonzalez, an attorney who'd worked with the club on legal matters for years, and Rebecca Torres, a social worker who specialized in domestic violence cases. "Here's what we know," Hammer began, his voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "Jennifer Ashford is stable, but has 3 fractured ribs, a broken nose, severe bruising, and a concussion. Emily, her daughter, is physically unharmed but traumatized. Thomas Ashford posted bail 4 hours ago at $10,000, 10% of his bond." A rumble of anger went through the room. "CPS is involved," Rebecca interjected. "But here's the problem. Jennifer has no family nearby. Her parents are deceased. Thomas isolated her systematically over their 8-year marriage. She has no support system, limited finances. He controlled everything. And he's already hired Charles Whitmore." Several riders groaned. Whitmore was notorious. A defense attorney who specialized in making DV charges disappear, especially for wealthy clients. "He'll argue it was mutual combat," Maria said. "He'll paint Jennifer as unstable, claim she attacked him first. He'll use his reputation in the community, his charitable donations, his business connections, and statistically, he'll probably succeed in getting charges reduced or dismissed. Not on our watch." This came from Big James McCoy, president of the Righteous Riders. "What do you need?" Hammer pulled up a photo of Jennifer and Emily. "We need to show the court, the media, and Thomas Ashford that Jennifer isn't alone, that she has a community behind her, that there are consequences for what he did." "Legal consequences," Maria emphasized. "We do this right by the book. No threats, no intimidation, nothing that gives Whitmore ammunition. "What's the plan?" asked Sophia Martinez from the Chrome Saints. Hammer advanced to the next slide, a detailed operational layout. Tomorrow morning, Jennifer gets transferred from ICU to a regular room. Hospital administration is nervous about security. Thomas has resources and he's unpredictable. CPS wants Emily to stay with her mother if possible, but they need assurance of safety. "We provide that assurance," Wrench said. "Visible presence, legal escort." "Exactly," Hammer nodded. "But we go bigger, we make a statement. Saturday morning, the preliminary hearing happens at the county courthouse. We want Jennifer walking into that building knowing she's supported. We want Thomas Ashford seeing exactly what he's facing, and we want the judge understanding this isn't going away." "How many riders are we talking?" asked a prospect from the Desert Wolves. "As many as we can get." Hammer's eyes swept the room. "I'm calling in every favor, contacting every club we've ever ridden with. We're going to organize the largest solidarity ride this state has ever seen, 300 bikes minimum. Legal, coordinated, and absolutely overwhelming." The room erupted in approval. Riders were already pulling out phones, making calls, sending messages across club networks. Rebecca stepped forward. "I've arranged temporary housing for Jennifer and Emily through a domestic violence shelter program. Once she's discharged, they'll have a safe place. But she needs legal representation she can trust, not a public defender who's overworked." "Already handled," Maria said. "I'm taking her case pro bono, and I've got 2 associates from my firm volunteering their time. We're going to bury Whitmore in paperwork and precedent." For the next 2 hours they planned. Route coordination, hospital liaison, media strategy, because they wanted coverage, wanted the story told. Tommy organized riders into shifts for hospital presence. Diego coordinated with local law enforcement to ensure everything was legal and permitted. At 3 in the morning, Hammer sent out a message through every biker network in Texas. "Brothers and sisters, a child ran crying into a diner asking strangers to save her mother. Now we stand between that family and the man who hurt them." Saturday morning, Hill Country Memorial to Blanco County Courthouse. Ride for those who can't ride for themselves. Ride for justice. Ride for Emily. By dawn, confirmations were flooding in from across the state. 300 bikes had become 400. Clubs they'd never even met were volunteering to make the trip. At the hospital, Jennifer woke to find Martha from the diner sitting in the visitor's chair, knitting. The older woman smiled gently. "Your daughter is sleeping in the family room with a CPS worker," Martha said softly. "And honey, you've got more friends than you know. The parking lot outside, there are bikers taking shifts, making sure you're safe. Been there all night." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "I don't understand. Why would they?" "Because Emily asked for help, and real men answer that call." Martha set down her knitting. "And because the biker community doesn't forget. Ever." In a penthouse apartment downtown, Thomas Ashford sat with Charles Whitmore watching the morning news. A local reporter stood in the hospital parking lot, filming a line of motorcycles that stretched down the street. "This is what we're dealing with," Whitmore said calmly. "They're trying to intimidate you, create a narrative. We counter by emphasizing your standing in the community, your lack of prior incidents, the stress of business pressures." "I want her to drop the charges," Thomas said coldly. "Whatever it takes." "She won't. Not with this support." Whitmore closed his briefcase. "So we prepare for battle. Character witnesses, expert testimony, motion to suppress the daughter's statements as coached. We attack credibility. We highlight inconsistencies. And we remind the judge that emotional mobs don't determine guilt or innocence." But even Whitmore looked uneasy, as the news broadcast showed more motorcycles arriving at the hospital, a steady stream of leather-clad riders maintaining a peaceful but unmistakable presence. The word had gone out, and the community had answered. Chapter 3. The Wall of Steel. Saturday morning arrived with crystal-clear skies, perfect riding weather. By 7 a.m., the roads leading to Blanco County were filling with motorcycles from every direction, not just clubs, but independent riders, veterans groups, even a chapter of the Women's Motorcycle Coalition from Austin. Hammer stood in the hospital parking lot coordinating the assembly. They divided the riders into groups: hospital escort, courthouse formation, and overflow support. Every participant had received explicit instructions: no profanity, no aggressive behavior, respect all traffic laws, and maintain discipline at all times. Jennifer was being discharged at 9. The hearing was scheduled for 11. That gave them 2 hours to make the 15-mile ride and establish position at the courthouse. Inside her hospital room, Jennifer sat on the edge of the bed while Rebecca helped Emily brush her hair. The little girl wore a new outfit donated by Martha, purple leggings and a shirt with a unicorn on it. She'd barely let go of her mother's hand for 3 days. "I'm scared," Jennifer whispered to Rebecca. "What if the judge doesn't believe me? Thomas is so convincing, he always makes me feel like I'm crazy, like I imagined everything." "Look out that window," Rebecca said gently. Jennifer moved to the glass. Below, the parking lot was a sea of motorcycles and leather. Riders stood in small groups, drinking coffee, talking quietly, organized, peaceful, unshakable. "Those people came from all over Texas because Emily asked for help and you had the courage to accept it," Rebecca continued. "You're not alone anymore, and judges notice when an entire community shows up to support a survivor." Maria entered the room, carrying a briefcase and looking confident. "Good news. Whitmore filed a motion to dismiss based on insufficient evidence. I've already submitted our opposition with supporting documentation, hospital photos, Emily's statement to the sheriff, the paramedic report, and testimony from 18 witnesses at the diner." "Will it work? The dismissal motion? No. But Whitmore's doing it for show to seem aggressive to his client. What matters is the protective order. We're requesting a full restraining order. No contact. Minimum 500 feet distance. Surrender of firearms. With your testimony and the evidence, we'll get it." At 9:15, Jennifer and Emily were escorted from the hospital. Hammer walked beside them, his presence a silent shield. As they emerged into the morning sunlight, something extraordinary happened. 400 bikers, standing beside their motorcycles, removed their helmets in unison. Then they began to clap. Not wild cheering, but steady, respectful applause that rolled through the parking lot like thunder. Emily pressed against her mother's side, eyes wide. Jennifer stood frozen, overwhelmed. These strangers had given her something she'd lost years ago, the belief that people could be good, that help existed, that she mattered. "Ready to ride?" Hammer asked gently. Jennifer nodded, unable to speak. They'd arranged for Jennifer and Emily to ride in a pickup truck driven by Big James, positioned in the middle of the motorcycle convoy. As the formation began to move, the sound was overwhelming, hundreds of engines rumbling in synchronized precision. They rode down Route 281, maintaining exactly the speed limit. Hammer led the front group, his bike gleaming in the sunshine. Behind him, row after row of motorcycles stretched in perfect formation, 2 by 2, maintaining proper spacing, turn signals flashing in unison at every intersection. Traffic pulled aside. People stood on sidewalks taking photos. News helicopters filmed from above. This wasn't just a motorcycle ride. It was a statement, a declaration that violence against the vulnerable would not be tolerated, that community meant protection. At the courthouse, they'd arranged with Sheriff Tucker for designated parking in the surrounding blocks. The bikes filled every available space, creating a perimeter of chrome and steel around the building. Riders took positions along the sidewalks, forming a corridor from the parking area to the courthouse steps. Thomas Ashford arrived with Charles Whitmore at 10:40. His luxury sedan pulled up to see hundreds of bikers lining the pathway. His face went pale. For the first time since his arrest, Thomas Ashford understood that his money and influence had limits. Whitmore gripped his arm. "Ignore them, eyes forward. Don't react." They walked through the corridor of silent bikers. No one spoke. No one moved. They simply stood, arms crossed, watching. The message was clear. "We see you. We know what you did, and we're not going anywhere." Inside the courthouse, Judge Patricia Morrison took the bench promptly at 11. She was a 20-year veteran of family court, known for being fair but tough. Her eyes swept the packed courtroom, noting the unusual number of leather-clad observers filling every seat. "This is a preliminary hearing regarding case number DV 2025-0847, State versus Thomas Ashford," Judge Morrison announced. "Counsel, approach." The hearing lasted 90 minutes. Maria presented the evidence methodically. Hospital records, photographs that made several observers wince, Emily's recorded statement, witness testimony from Doc and Deputy Chen. She played the 911 call Jennifer had managed to make before Thomas took her phone, her terrified voice begging for help. Whitmore attempted to paint Thomas as a stressed businessman who'd had too much to drink, suggested Jennifer had been equally aggressive, tried to get Emily's statement excluded. Judge Morrison shut him down repeatedly. "Mr. Whitmore, I've reviewed the evidence. Your client caused significant bodily injury to his wife while intoxicated in the presence of their minor child. The suggestion that this was mutual combat is not supported by any evidence presented. Continue." When it came time for testimony, Jennifer took the stand. Her voice shook at first, but as she spoke, strength built. She described years of escalating control, Thomas monitoring her phone, limiting her access to money, isolating her from friends. She detailed previous incidents he'd explained away, times she'd covered bruises with makeup. "Why didn't you leave before?" Whitmore asked during cross-examination, his tone implying weakness. "Because he told me no one would believe me," Jennifer answered steadily. "Because he said he'd take Emily. Because he made me believe I was nothing without him." She paused, looking directly at Thomas. "But I was wrong. Emily showed me I was strong enough to ask for help. And people answered." The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison rendered her decision without hesitation. The evidence presented clearly establishes probable cause for the charges. The protective order is granted in full. No contact with Jennifer or Emily Ashford, 500 feet minimum distance, immediate surrender of all firearms, GPS monitoring during pretrial period. Bail conditions are modified to include alcohol monitoring. She looked directly at Thomas. "Mr. Ashford, if you violate this order, you will be remanded to custody immediately. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Thomas said, his voice barely audible. As they exited the courthouse, the bikers had formed two lines, creating a clear path to Big James's truck. Jennifer walked between them, holding Emily's hand. This time the applause was louder, celebratory. Hammer approached as they reached the vehicle. "Ma'am, you've got a long road ahead, but whenever you need support, you call. We ride for people who need us." Jennifer hugged him, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you all." As the convoy dispersed, riders heading back to their respective cities, Maria pulled Hammer aside. "The criminal case is just beginning. Whitmore will fight, but today was huge. The protective order. The judge seeing community support, the media coverage. You gave Jennifer something she desperately needed." "What's that?" "Proof that the world has more good people than bad ones." Chapter 4. The Long Road. Forward. 3 months later, the Crossroads Diner hosted a different kind of gathering. Jennifer sat in a booth with Emily, Martha, Rebecca, and Maria. The dinner crowd buzzed around them, but their table was an island of warmth and laughter. "How's the new job?" Martha asked, refilling coffee cups. "Good. Really good." Jennifer smiled, the first genuine smile many of them had seen. "The law firm Maria recommended took a chance on me. I'm starting as a paralegal assistant. It's entry level, but it's mine. Thomas doesn't control it." Emily colored contentedly beside her mother, drawing pictures of motorcycles. She'd been in therapy for 2 months, processing the trauma. Her nightmares had decreased. She smiled more. The criminal case against Thomas was proceeding. Whitmore had negotiated a plea deal. 3 years probation, mandatory anger management and substance abuse treatment, permanent protective order. It wasn't prison, but it was accountability. More importantly, Jennifer had filed for divorce. With Maria's help, she'd secured primary custody of Emily, child support, and a fair division of assets. Thomas's attempts to intimidate her through legal maneuvering had failed, largely because every court appearance drew a quiet but visible presence of bikers in the gallery. "I never understood motorcycle clubs before," Jennifer said quietly. "The media makes them seem scary, but you all saved us." "Clubs are like any community," Rebecca explained. "Some are bad, some are good. The good ones protect people who can't protect themselves. They understand loyalty and justice." The door chimed. Hammer walked in with Wrench and Doc, their vests bearing patches from various charity rides completed since that day in October. They'd invited Jennifer to speak at several DV awareness events. Her story had inspired other survivors to come forward. "Ladies," Hammer greeted, sliding into the booth across from them. "Emily, what are you drawing there?" "You," Emily said proudly, holding up a picture of a bearded man on a motorcycle. "And all your friends who helped Mommy." Hammer's weathered face softened. "That's real nice, kiddo." They talked for an hour, about Jennifer's plans to eventually go back to school, about Emily's improved grades, about the support group Rebecca had connected them with. The conversation was normal, comfortable, proof that healing was possible. As they prepared to leave, Jennifer pulled Hammer aside. "I want to do something, to give back. I was thinking maybe I could volunteer with that program you mentioned, Bikers Against Child Abuse. Baka would love to have you. Survivors who become advocates are powerful voices. Emily wants to learn to ride someday. She says she wants to help other kids like you helped us." Hammer chuckled. "She's got the heart for it. When she's old enough, we'll teach her right." Outside, the sunset painted the Texas sky in shades of orange and purple. Emily ran to Hammer's bike, touching the chrome carefully like it was precious. "Mr. Hammer?" she asked. "Why did you help us? You didn't know us." Hammer knelt down to her level. "Because when someone asks for help, real folks answer. That's what community means. And because no child should ever be scared in their own home." "I'm not scared anymore," Emily said seriously, "because I know there are good people. There are, kiddo, there really are." As Hammer rode away, he thought about that afternoon 3 months ago when a terrified little girl had burst into a diner crying for help. He thought about how quickly the community had mobilized, how hundreds of riders had dropped everything to support a stranger. The biker community wasn't perfect. They had their problems, their conflicts, their bad apples. But at its core, it understood something essential, that strength wasn't about intimidation or violence. It was about standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. It was about turning pain into purpose, about building walls of protection around the vulnerable. His phone buzzed. A message from Big James. Another call came in. "Single mom in Dallas, stalker ex-boyfriend, cops aren't moving fast enough. How soon can we mobilize?" Hammer smiled grimly. The work never ended. There would always be another Jennifer, another Emily, another person desperate for help. He typed back, "Give me the address. I'll have riders there by morning." Because that's what they did. When someone cried out for help, they answered, every single time,